Chosen ones, if you carry more shadow, you also carry 3 rare hidden abilities. There's a reason why your life has never mirrored the lives of those around you. While others seem to move through this world with ease, you've walked through invisible fires, carrying burdens you can't even explain. You've felt things no one around you could understand. You've been misunderstood, misjudged, and many times you've questioned your own sanity. But deep inside, something kept whispering you are meant for something more. You felt it in moments of silence, in the midst of your pain, beneath your anger, and even in your loneliness. That whisper wasn't a fantasy, it was a memory, a soul memory, because you are one of the chosen ones. And not just any chosen one, you carry more shadow than most, and because of that, you also carry 3 rare hidden abilities that are only awakened through darkness. This is not something that can be taught in a classroom or found in a book. This is ancient. This is encoded in your soul. And the path you have walked, no matter how painful, was the exact path that would unlock what no one else could carry. We don't talk enough about this, about how the chosen ones are often sculpted in silence, about how the deeper your shadow, the deeper your capacity for light. The more you've suffered, the more you've been entrusted with power. But that power doesn't come in the form the world expects. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's hidden. And only those who've faced their shadow to the bone can activate these gifts.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
So let me ask you something only your soul can answer. Have you ever felt like the very things that tried to destroy you are the same things that made you stronger? That is not coincidence, that's design. You see, the first rare hidden ability you carry is empathic transmutation. This is not the same as being an empath. Anyone can feel emotions, but you don't just feel them, you alchemize them. When someone sits in your presence, their pain starts to unravel. They don't know why, they just feel lighter. You don't need to speak, you don't need to preach. Your energy does the work. Why? Because you've been through the depths. You've sat with pain without running. You've cried without shame. You've raged without losing yourself. And because of that, you now carry a frequency that dissolves density around you. Whether you realize it or not, your mere presence transforms others. But here's the trick. This only activates when you stop rejecting your shadow. When you stop trying to heal just to be better and start embracing all that you are, even the parts the world told you were ugly. The second hidden ability is spiritual pattern recognition. This is something that most people don't even know exists. It's your ability to see what's not being said. You walk into a room and you feel the emotional map of everyone inside. You have visions. You dream of things before they happen. You know when someone's lying, even if they're smiling to your face. You can feel the karma in conversations, the trauma behind someone's words, the spiritual contracts playing out in relationships. But you don't just see people, you see through them. And this has made you feel isolated, hasn't it? Because how do you explain this level of awareness to people who only see the surface? But here's the truth. This ability is not a curse. It's a compass. It's what allows you to walk into any room, any situation, and know what's really happening at a soul level. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive. And when you learn to trust this ability, it becomes your greatest weapon of discernment. Now, the third hidden ability you carry is the most powerful of all energetic resurrection. This is your power to rise again and again, no matter how many times life tries to break you. You've been knocked down in ways that would have destroyed others, but still, you're here, still breathing, still trying, and that's not because you're lucky. It's because your soul carries the code of the phoenix. You regenerate, not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually. Every time you break, you come back with more wisdom. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every betrayal becomes a deeper boundary. Every failure becomes a foundation. This is not normal. This is not something most people can do. You are carrying the rarest power that exists, the ability to rebuild yourself from nothing. And each time you do, you rise stronger, clearer, more aligned. But for these abilities to truly awaken, you must make a shift. You must stop seeing your shadow as the enemy. You must stop trying to escape your past and instead integrate it. Because your shadow is not your weakness, it's your initiation. Every part of you that you've tried to hide is actually a piece of your power waiting to be reclaimed. And the moment you stop judging your wounds and start listening to them, everything changes. Your abilities sharpen. Your energy expands. You stop leaking your power trying to be normal and start embodying the force you were born to be. So I ask you again, what if everything you thought disqualified you was actually what qualified you? What if your deepest shame was actually your sacred assignment? This isn't just a video. This is a mirror, and it's time to look into it and remember who you are. You're not just someone who survived. You're someone who was chosen to carry the shadow so that others could find the light. You're someone who holds the key to a frequency that this world desperately needs, but it can only be unlocked when you stop hiding and start honoring the depth of your own soul. And that's where we go next. The shadow is the temple, why your darkness was the portal to your power. You've been taught to fear your darkness, conditioned to believe that the parts of you that don't shine must be hidden, healed, or silenced. But what if that was the greatest lie ever told? What if the very parts of you that you've been trying to arrest were never broken but sacred? What if your shadow wasn't a mistake, but a map? A coded design leading you directly to your highest power? See, when you carry more shadow, it means your soul chose the deeper curriculum. It means you came here not for a simple life, but for a transformational one. You agreed to walk through the fire not because you were being punished, but because you were being forged. And the shadow, it's not the enemy. It's the temple. It's the place where your real initiation happens. It's where your illusions die and your essence is reborn. Think about it. Where did your greatest insights come from? The mountaintop or the valley? The applause or the breakdown? We don't awaken in the light, we awaken in the void, in the silence, in the heartbreak, in the confusion. That's where the ego collapses. That's where the soul steps forward. You don't find power in the parts of you that are polished, you find it in the parts that are bled. So why do we keep trying to escape the very space that holds our liberation? Because the shadow is uncomfortable. It confronts us with everything we don't want to admit. Our jealousy, our rage, our grief, our guilt. We've been taught that these things are low vibrational. That to be spiritual is to always be calm, always be kind, always be in control. But that's not spirituality, that's performance. Real spirituality is raw, it's messy, it's honest, it's the willingness to sit with your pain without numbing it, to look your past in the face and say, I see you and I'm not running anymore. And when you do that, when you sit in the temple of your shadow long enough, something sacred begins to happen. You start to hear the truth beneath your pain. You realize that your anger was never evil, it was the voice of your boundaries. But your grief was not weakness, it was your capacity for love. Your shame was not a flaw, it was the result of carrying expectations that were never yours to begin with. Every emotion has a message. Every shadow has a story. And once you stop trying to fix them, you can finally feel them. And feeling them is what sets you free. This is the paradox. The more shadow you carry, the more light you have the potential to embody. Because shadow is just unintegrated light. But it's power that hasn't been claimed. It's wisdom that hasn't been owned. And the more you face it, the more of yourself you reclaim. That's why chosen ones often go through so many cycles of death and rebirth. You're not losing yourself, you're shedding everything that isn't you. You're remembering, piece by piece, lifetime by lifetime. But here's the secret most don't realize. The shadow isn't just internal. It's also collective. And when you've done the work within, you begin to see the patterns without. You start to recognize the unconscious loop society runs on. You start to see how people are manipulated through fear, through division, through trauma. You start to realize why your life has been so intense, because you were never meant to be asleep. You were born to see. And not just see, but disrupt. That's what chosen ones do. We don't just heal ourselves. We become the mirror that reflects what others are too afraid to face. Not to shame them, but to awaken them. And that's why your shadow matters. Because it's not just your personal pain, it's your portal to purpose. Every time you integrate another layer, you become more powerful, more clear, more embodied. You become someone who can hold space for others without collapsing, and someone who can walk into chaos and remain centered. Someone who doesn't just talk about healing, but is the embodiment of it. So the next time the darkness rises, the next time you feel the old wounds returning, the old fears whispering, don't run, don't numb, don't judge, sit with it, listen, ask it, what are you trying to show me that I've been too afraid to see? Because every time you do, you walk deeper into the temple of your soul. And in that temple, you will find gifts you never imagined. Gifts that were never lost, only hidden, waiting for your courage to retrieve them. The DNA of the divine outcast, why the universe is waiting for you to stop apologizing. There's a deep ache in the hearts of the chosen ones, acquired, often unspoken pain that begins in childhood and follows them like a shadow through every stage of life. It's the feeling of being other, of being too different, too deep, too intense, too honest. You were the one who asked questions no one had answers to, who felt things more deeply than anyone around you, who couldn't sit comfortably inside the lies that others seemed to accept so easily. And so, you became the outcast. Not because you were wrong, but because you were true. You held a frequency that disrupted the illusion, and the illusion pushed back. You see, being chosen doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. It means you were born encoded with something ancient, something sacred, a blueprint that doesn't fit into the world as it is because it was never meant to. You weren't made to adapt to dysfunction. You weren't made to conform to systems built on fear, competition, and control. You were made to rebuild them. But how can you rebuild something you still believe you're unworthy of touching? That's why the universe is waiting for you to stop apologizing. Because here's the truth, Most chosen ones spend their entire lives trying to shrink their light to make others comfortable, or to not be too much, to not trigger jealousy or judgment or rejection, and so they hide. They dull their edges. They speak carefully, walk cautiously, love conditionally. But deep down, they know they're betraying themselves. They know they're holding back something massive, something cosmic, something real. You don't need permission to be what you already are. You don't need validation to express the truth that lives in your bones. But the universe didn't send you here to blend in. It sent you here to break the mold. And every time you apologize for your power, every time you second-guess your intuition, every time you pretend to be smaller than you are, you delay the mission your soul came here to fulfill. But let's be honest, that mission isn't easy. You carry the DNA of the divine outcast, but that means you feel everything. You see everything. You're hyper-aware of energy, of intention, of truth versus performance. You walk into a room and instantly know who's hiding, who's hurting, who's manipulating, who's asleep. You know when someone's words don't match their frequency. You know when someone's love is conditional. This isn't something you learned. It's something you've always had. And while others might call it sensitivity, you know it's something far deeper. It's spiritual intelligence. It's the soul's radar. But here's where we often fall into the trap. We think that because we see more, we must do more. We think it's our job to fix everyone, to heal everything, to carry the emotional weight of those around us. And when they don't appreciate it, or worse, reject it, we turn that pain inward. We start believing we're the problem, is that our intuition is a burden, that our empathy is weakness. But that's not the truth. That's the programming, the ancient pattern designed to suppress those capable of creating change from within. So let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you stopped apologizing for how deeply you feel, how clearly you see, and how fiercely you love? Because your power isn't in being liked. It's in being real. It's in refusing to betray your knowing just to be included in spaces that were never meant for you. It's in standing in your truth, even when your voice shakes. It's in trusting your frequency more than the facade of the world. That's when your DNA activates. That's when the hidden gifts begin to bloom. Not when you reach perfection, but when you reach authenticity. The divine outcast isn't here to fit in. We're here to reveal, to be the living embodiment of a higher timeline, to become so anchored in our truth that we become immune to manipulation, to release the need to be understood and instead focus on being aligned. Because when you are aligned, the right people, the right opportunities, the right doors, they open without force. You don't have to shout to be heard. Your presence becomes the sermon. Your silence becomes the message. Your life becomes the proof. And maybe you've been feeling tired. Maybe you've been doubting yourself lately. Maybe you've been wondering if it's all too much. That's okay. That's part of the path. The divine outcast is not an easy role to carry. But it's the most important one. Because while others are still pretending, you've already begun remembering. And that remembrance is what creates ripple effects across the collective. Every time you choose to honor your truth over your fear, you shift not just your life, but the lives of everyone connected to you. So the question isn't, am I too much? The real question is, when will I finally allow myself to be enough, exactly as I am, wild, wise, and untamed? The moment you do, the world will begin to bend around your frequency. Not because you demanded it, but because you became it. Your frequency is a weapon, how to walk as a living portal in a world that was never meant to contain you. There will come a moment, if it hasn't already, when you realize that you're no longer just a person moving through the world. You've become something else. A tuning fork, a signal, a walking frequency that doesn't just exist, it alters everything it touches. And the more shadow you've integrated, the more truth you've remembered, the more your very being becomes a portal. Not to a place, but to a state of consciousness. And that's when the game changes. You see, most people live their lives reacting to the world around them. They absorb the energy of others. They mold themselves to fit the environment. But you shift the environment. You walk into a room and the energy recalibrates. The masks start to fall off. The truth begins to rise to the surface. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. They feel seen, they feel exposed. They feel something ancient stirring inside them. And that's not because you said the right words, or wore the right clothes, or did anything specific. It's because you become the frequency of truth itself. But here's the paradox: the more powerful your frequency becomes, the more resistance you'll face. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're disrupting the unconscious patterns that people have built their lives around. You're not just triggering individuals, you're triggering the matrix, then the illusion, the false self, and the illusion fights to survive. That's why sometimes people will attack you without knowing why. That's why old friends drift away. That's why lovers fall out of resonance. It's not rejection, it's spiritual friction. Your vibration is incompatible with anything that isn't aligned. And that's why your frequency must become your weapon, not a weapon of violence, but of clarity, of sovereignty, of presence. When you know who you are, when you stop apologizing, when you stop chasing approval, you become unshakable. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove yourself. Your energy speaks before your mouth ever opens. And those who are ready will feel it. They'll recognize you. Not because of your appearance, but because your frequency carries the code they've been searching for. But here's the warning: don't let this world distract you from your alignment. The moment you begin walking as a portal, the temptations will increase. You'll be offered attention, status, shortcuts. You'll be pulled into drama, into noise, into illusions dressed up as opportunities. But that's the real test. Can you stay aligned when the world tries to seduce you back into forgetting? Can you stay sovereign when everyone else is still playing roles? To walk as a living portal means constant refinement. It means choosing presence over performance, integrity over image, depth over convenience. It means letting go of timelines, letting go of who you thought you were supposed to be, and surrendering to who you already are underneath it all. It means trusting that your frequency will guide you better than any plan ever could, that your energy will call in what's meant for you and repel what's not with perfect precision. So how do you protect your frequency? You stop giving it to everyone. You stop leaking it into spaces that drain you. You become intentional with your time, your presence, your attention. You create rituals that root you. You speak only when your words are clean. You rest when your spirit is tired. You surround yourself with those who nourish your remembrance, not those who use your light to avoid their dark. And most of all, you own it. You own the fact that you're no longer here to chase anything. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're not here to be liked, you're here to be real. And being real is the most revolutionary act in a world addicted to the fake. So walk tall, walk clear, walk slow and sacred. You are not just a person, you are a living portal. Be a disruptor of illusion, a holder of codes. And no, this world was never meant to contain you. Because you didn't come here to fit in. You came here to remind this world what it forgot.